Fresh air, longer days, a chance to reset. This season, let therapy be part of your spring cleaning. Clearing mental clutter, shaking off stuckness, and building something better. Grow Therapy helps you get there. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 15th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Live from the back of Ruth the Realtor's car, it's the Stacking Deed Show. I'm Ruth's neighbor and part-time mechanic, Neighbor Doug, broadcasting live from the spacious, luxurious trunk recording studio. The hardest job in the world is being a mother, but how about being a mother and full-time real estate investor? Today's special guest, Grace Swanson, shares all she has learned balancing 3 kids with 8 rental properties. In our headlines, we talk celebrity real estate movies. How would you feel if an A-lister moves into your town and buys the best real estate? We will dive into A-lister property purchases. Plus, we'll give you a ride through history in today's Property Prop Quiz as we roll back the clock way back to talk Americans' early ventures into mass transit. And now, 2 hosts balancing 30 kids and 9,000 properties, Alan Corey and Crystal Hammond.
I'm Crystal Hammond at Condo Crystal, and sitting next to me is Alan Corey at Real Estate Maxi in the Twitter streets.
Hey, Crystal. Well, okay, so maybe he got the kids wrong, but 9,000 properties, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration too. I have been real estate investing for 23 years. I've got 18 doors by myself across about 6 properties. With partners, I've got another 350 doors. So where are you in your real estate? Are you making up the other 9,000 there?
Not yet. I guess I aspire to that someday.
That'd be great. I mean, we're learning each day. We're pushing each other. So I don't think you need 9,000 properties to really change your life. I've always say, 4 properties is really the baseline to retire off of, to live off the good cash flow. You buy it and hold it. But if you've got a lot of money to spend, like a celebrity, they end up buying a lot of properties. Why don't you tell us about those headlines that you found today, Crystal?
Yeah, so here's the first headline. It looks like Mr. Beast, he's a really big YouTuber. It says it takes a village inside Mr. Beast's $318,000 home. After YouTuber, he's 25, he's worth $105 million. He buys out an entire neighborhood for himself, his family, and his staff.
And he's not just a YouTuber, he's the biggest YouTuber, and he's been reported to turn down $1 billion for his entire YouTube operation, and that's pretty good for a 25-year-old. Yeah, it looks like he's buying up his cul-de-sac. If you're familiar with his videos, I am, because I've got kids, but he's very down to earth. He's not buying McMansions. This is in Greenville, North Carolina, in a good, suburban school district where he grew up, and he just keeps buying his neighbors' houses and putting his friends in it. But if you watch his videos, he also gives free homes to people and free cars. So he's very generous with his money. And that sort of is how he built his empire, is by giving away his money. So this is an interesting strategy. I wouldn't call it good real estate investing, but it definitely makes for good PR. But I would imagine, I don't know, would you want to live on the same street as a YouTuber, Crystal?
I wouldn't mind. I think it would bring up property values. If anything, I think it would bring more people to the neighborhood. I would think it would bring more, I would say, buzz to the neighborhood, which also, speaking of bringing buzz to the neighborhood, I saw this other article about another celebrity. So Dave Chappelle, he actually has been buying real estate in his hometown of Ohio. and he helped restore Ohio. That's what the comedian says in this piece from Fox Business by Janelle Ash. Apparently, there were some homeowners that actually got upset with him for bringing, I would say, a ruckus to the neighborhood, even though he brought money. I also thought it was funny in this article that they say that there's only one CPA in the whole town, and he wrote that, a few local businesses would not exist today if it weren't for those shows that he did, because they brought $12 million in direct and indirect economic activity for the state of Ohio, including $4 million for just that one village where Dave Chappelle ended up buying, I believe it was 8 homes. So could that be a good thing, a celebrity coming to the neighborhood to buy up the block?
He was raised in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and he's saying that him buying it is keeping the town alive. And he's holding the shows in the cornfield. I remember watching them over COVID. We're trapped at home and everyone was separated and there wasn't much entertainment going on. And bringing $12 million to the town, he said it was a lifesaver. But there's also neighbors complaining that the cornfields are usually quiet. And now that you have a comedy show with amplified speakers, it's too disruptive and too loud, regardless of how much money is coming in. And it's one of those things to me, I think, you're never going to please everyone.
That's true. I think everyone's going to complain. You're going to have someone complain about something. And I think it's very funny that people are complaining about a $4 million economic stimulation to the village. But then I guess, do the homeowners really see that?
Right. It actually reminds me, because I grew up in Georgia, in 1989, Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger, they bought an entire town, Brazelton, Georgia, for $20 million. At the time, they wanted to make it sort of an outpost, movie studio location sort of thing. It never happened. I think they ended up selling it about 8 years later for a little bit less than what they bought it for. But it actually spurred the TV show Schitt's Creek. I don't know if you watched that. Oh. It's great, but they took that story and said, well, if we buy a town, but we make it funny, and that's one of my favorite shows. So
mine too.
So maybe the inspiration here of celebrities buying towns or neighborhoods could lead to good creative content for others.
That's amazing. Well, I've been buying up places on my block hoping to make it look better. So celebrities, there's some places on the south side of Chicago. I'd love to have you invest.
Yeah, but I think these stories, what I'm hearing is they're not good basics real estate fundamentals. Like, they're buying it because they've got money and they've got a dream and a vision, or it just makes their life easier. But typically buying suburban homes in a good school district, I don't think that's good real estate investing, because you're usually paying a premium to live there, and that's more of a lifestyle decision. You're putting your money in lifestyle decision, which is fine. If you've got extra money to spend on that to just keep your friends next door so you don't have to drive as far to hang out with them, that's just a privilege of celebrity. Same with buying a town that doesn't go anywhere, or, putting events on in Yellow Springs, Ohio, like Dave Chappelle does. It's not putting money in his pocket so much as it is in the town. So I think these are not takeaways that I want our listeners to say, wow, I want to buy every house in the good suburbs or in my street. These are just, hey, I've got some extra money. I think this is what's in the best interest of my, hometown. But the economics, I can't see it as good investing.
So you're talking investing as an investor, not as in your primary residence. If you have children, school district, all that is important. But when you're looking to get into investing, then you go back to Alan's spreadsheet that we shared in a previous episode, because you're looking at the numbers. You're not necessarily looking at different neighborhood factors.
That's right. I like to say when you're investing, you want to make a spreadsheet decision, not an emotional decision. And a lot of times your primary is an emotional decision. We'll put these links in the show notes for these articles. You can read for yourself. Let us know if you think these are good investments or if you'd want a celebrity moving to your town. Go to stackingdeeds.net/show notes. Coming up, we've got Grace Swanson joining us. She's a mom that left her day job because of real estate investing, and we're going to hear her balancing act of her 3 kids and her 8 properties. But first, let's go to Doug with today's property pop quiz.
Hey there, Deeters. I'm Ruth's Fetch It Boy, neighbor Doug. We all know there's only one mode of transportation that has a waft of urine more pronounced than that in the back of Ruth's stretch-down car. That's right, I'm talking about mass transit. On this day in history, way back in 1892, this American city debuted its first mass transit system consisting of wooden cars pulled by steam trains. This stretch of track is actually still in use today, but in what U.S. city? I'll be back after I personally mark my territory over at that cinema. I like to sit in the front row so that I can see the movie before the people in the rows behind me do. That's how it works, right?
Big news. We've partnered with Steadily Landlord Insurance, America's best-rated landlord insurance provider. Discover why landlords nationwide are choosing Steadily for their insurance coverage. Get a quote online in minutes at stackingdeeds.steadilypartner.com. We'll also put a link to that in our show notes. Steadily was founded by landlords for landlords and specialize in landlord insurance. They've made their mission to be the absolute best provider in the market for dwelling, umbrella, builder's risk, renter's insurance, and more. Go to stackingdeeds.steadilypartner for your white glove insurance needs.
Hey there, Deeders. I'm back, and let's just say I've got no choice but to stream my movies going forward. I'm still marking my seat on the couch, though, right? It's me, Ruth's mechanic, neighbor Doug, with your trivia answer. June 6, 1892 was the launch of what city's mass transit system, giving their citizens a W in people moving transit. And also, maybe an L. For you deep thinkers out there, or deep pizza eaters, I'm talking about the Windy City. That's right, Chicago. It launched the Loop Transit System, otherwise known as the L, just east of State Street. This section is still active near the Indiana stop where the orange and green lines run. As for colors running, anyone know how to get yellow lines out of upholstery? Asking for a friend. Anyway, let's get back to the show where we have our conductors, Crystal and Alan, with some precious cargo. Today's guest, Grace Swanson.
Ruth, can you pull over my friend? There's my friend Grace. I want to pick her brain about being a full-time mom and also managing all these real estate properties. Hi, Grace. How are you today?
Hey, Crystal. I'm great. How are you?
Good. So how many properties do you guys own?
We have 5 right now. At one point, we had 8. 8 was a little too much for us, just in terms of the managing, because I do self-manage and I'm busy. 5 is good. I would say 6 is sort of my sweet spot. I feel like I'm ready for one more, but that's where we are right now.
And are they all like single families or are they mixed? Like what are the units?
They're all single families except for one, which is a duplex.
Oh, cool.
And we had another duplex that we sold a couple years ago. But otherwise, they're all single families.
Okay. And then how far do you guys live from all of your properties?
We currently live a little further than we used to because we moved last summer. But I would say now we're about 45 minutes from most of them.
Okay. So then are you a one-woman show managing all of your rentals?
I am a one-woman show.
How the heck do you do it?
I never meant to do it, which is sort of how it happened. It was definitely never the plan. The plan was always going to be to have property managers do it for us. We just sort of realized the profitability was not there with the property managers. And so I'm certainly open to find that sweet spot, but we haven't found it yet.
So what were the issues that you were running into with your property managers?
To be honest, we could not afford them. We found their list of things that had to be done in the properties to be not necessary. And so they would give us a whole host of things that had to be painted and updated and things that we needed to do. And then in order to do those, and we want our renters to have lovely places to live and we take great care of them. And, we're certainly, we don't want to be on the news for being a, delinquent property manager.
Slumlord.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So we would agree to these things. And then the cost for doing them was insane because they take a 15% fee on top of all of the
Oh.
of all the fees. So they have no incentive to find you a reasonably priced anything, whether you're talking cosmetic or electrician, plumber, that sort of a thing. There's no incentive. So, things we would do in our own house that I would have our handyman do, we were doing on typically smaller scales. We live, where there are 5 of us living in our house. It's just a bigger house. And we would do the same things in a much smaller scale for rental property. And it would cost us exponentially more. We did that for years, and we sort of would fight with them and go back and forth. Then it would come time to find a renter, and we were still paying them a monthly fee.
Even if it's empty?
Even if it was empty. And then we didn't really think that they were that incentivized. I mean, yes, at some point they wanted to rent it, but we did not feel that they were that incentivized to rent our house. So for me, it's my money, and I'm very incentivized to rent the house.
Right.
This makes it sound like we learned that quickly. No, we learned that lesson over 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And we had a property manager. We changed property managers several times. And then we had one that was sort of working. And then we would take one house back. And I was starting to do that. And then I would say I'm never taking another house. This is too much. I'm not doing another house. And then we would get to the breaking point, a few months later with the property manager. And then all of a sudden we're saying, fine, I'll take that one also. And then all of a sudden I'm managing all of them.
Well, that's actually comforting to know, just because you think, number one, it could be hard to fire property managers. But number two, it feels like something that's hard to manage on your own. So my next question is, how do you find tenants?
So we find tenants through Zillow, which is, I'm sure, what a lot of people use. And then for one of our houses in particular that is a duplex, we ended up, I don't want to use the word partnering because there's no formal agreement, but we work with a nonprofit in Atlanta that assists people with sort of their acute needs. A mom writes in because her power's been turned off, and so she needs $300 for the power bill. A son is turning 8 next week and doesn't have she can't afford a birthday present. So there's this group of, it's not all moms, but I do think it's a lot of moms from, I would say, northern Atlanta area. And I was in this Facebook group as a donor for a couple years. And then we happened to have a vacancy in our duplex. And that night, the woman that runs it had posted about a homeless family that was living in their car, needed a place to stay. Well, I've got a place to stay. This isn't right. I didn't have to be a genius to make this connection. So I reached out to her, and then that has worked out well. We have always enjoyed being able to rent to often single mothers who don't necessarily qualify for a house or apartment through a standard leasing expectation. Their credit may not be great. They could have a spotty employment history. As you know, sometimes people just won't rent to single moms. They won't rent to people with children. There's just a lot of barriers. And we were in a position with truly not very much risk to us to be able to give these people a nice, safe place to live without a slumlord situation, with a landlord that would take care of them. That's gone on for a couple of years. We still work with them, and the woman who runs it just sort of lets me know, this person's going to move out. We do year leases. It's not short thing, but someone's going to move out, and she always has someone that needs a place to live, and so then we sort of we turn it over and we put another person in there.
So is this is it low income housing, or is it they have a program? Do they pay market rent? What's the terms?
They pay market rent.
Okay.
It's not low income housing.
Okay.
It's not entirely up to a market rent either. It's somewhere in between. We try to cover our costs. I'm not sure that we necessarily do, but that's sort of our goal. we sort of, the nonprofit has a different arrangement with each family. So there's been one person who they paid the rent for 2 months or something until they were sort of back on their feet, and the husband and wife situation, and they were both able to, they were both working and had money coming in. There's been another situation where they paid the rent the whole time. It's just, we know the deal going in. It's just sort of different each time. And that's been great for us. The housing crisis is obviously, as you know, ridiculous. And I'm a mom of 3 children, and the idea that I would not have a home to put my children in because
scary.
Yeah, I'd had a tough life. I just had some, I don't know, just fallen upon hard times, just had a different upbringing certainly than I did, is insane to me.
I would have never thought to partner with a nonprofit. And I'm a part of some of the Facebook groups, like my local Buy Nothing group.
Okay, yeah.
I would have never thought to tap into that.
I would have never either. I mean, it was one August night. I was just opened this, and this was this horrible situation of a mom living in a car with her children. And I thought, I've got an open house. Like,
right.
It felt almost self-serving to me because I was like, you're also with this on my list of like, I've got to get this rented out. But when I reached out to the woman, she was also thrilled, and it has worked out well.
That's awesome. So speaking of things that are on your list, so what are other things that are on your list that you have to do, and how do you keep track of everything that you have to do for all of your properties?
I mean, I have a list of just my go-to guys. I've got my handyman, and I think it is mostly all men, but I've certainly over the last 8 years built up a Rolodex of electricians, plumbers, window guys,
good,
general contractors, handyman, that sort of a thing. We've gone through some that were not great, and right now we're in a pretty good situation. I think we've got like a pretty good group that I can call. Some of our houses are in more, I would say, up and coming areas, and it's not always easy to find a service person who will actually go there. So that has been a bit of a challenge. And so we have found that group, I mean, as of now.
And then how do you handle the rent collection?
I am not great at rent collection. I have gotten better. I'm a social worker by professional training.
And you have a big heart.
Yeah, I've heard a joke several years ago that's like, you don't want a social worker as your rent collector. It's not good for business. I've struggled with that. And then, I don't know, we had a couple circumstances where I really felt taken advantage of, and I've just gotten a little stronger and a little harder to deal with, I guess. And so we've been very lucky with rent collection. I mean, we're always very reasonable, very lenient. If someone's having a tough time, I just need them to communicate that to me. I hate late fees with a passion. I don't understand how people are ever going to get themselves out of poverty when they're being stuck with a $50 late fee every day. That was actually one of our property managers. We were selling the house and we did a rent roll for the buyer. And I saw on the rent roll that this man had been paying hundreds of dollars a month every month in late fees. And I was enraged that the property manager hadn't told us this. I just couldn't believe. And I thought, how is this man ever supposed to get himself out of his situation,
out of the cycle?
Like, he's never going to get himself out of that cycle. So that was one reason we left that property manager.
Well, that's also a very big point, because the property manager is supposed to, number one, save you from all these headaches and heartaches, and they're supposed to make the ownership process as seamless as possible. And now you're saying, even as, you being a social worker and not being as stringent on the rent, this is still cheaper than having your property manager. Like, that speaks volumes.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, absolutely true. And the property manager has no incentive to, on one hand, it's probably great because they don't have the emotional connection and they don't feel the sympathy that I do.
Right.
But on the other hand, they have no incentive to even collect rent on time because they take all the late fees. It's not like we were getting extra money.
Right.
Because then I would have noticed, if we were getting several $100s a month in late fees, I would have obviously noticed that in our account, but that wasn't the case. So I had no idea this man wasn't paying on time. We were getting our money from them on time. So I had no idea.
Okay. So then this is a good lesson for hiring property managers. I guess things that you can put in your contract or agreement if you're looking to hire a property manager.
I would think so. We have not, I guess we sort of got so fed up, we just left the world of property management.
Got it. Oh, yeah.
And so I have not tried to negotiate arrangements or, agreements with a property manager based on these things. I don't know I have no idea how open they'd be to that.
Got it. Oh, no, that makes sense. So are you still a social worker, or you're all full-time managing all of your properties? I
am full-time managing the properties right now with my children. I mean, it all started because after my daughter was born, we opened up her 529 for college, like responsible parents. My husband and I were both working corporate jobs at the time. He still is. And we put all of our bonus money that year into this 529. And I was like, that is not very fun. Like, didn't love that. And so then I just was sort of thinking, and I don't know, my cousin had one rental property or was getting one at the time. And we sort of realized we could buy a house and basically have someone else pay the mortgage. And then we can sell it when when my daughter goes to college. That was sort of our plan.
Okay.
And I thought we were going to have one house. And so that seemed like okay. That seemed okay to me. Then my husband got excited about the idea and he found out about the Beltline in Atlanta. And so he very aggressively bought up like every inexpensive house. And not literally every, but 8 inexpensive houses.
8?
Close to the Beltline.
He bought 8. So what do you guys consider inexpensive?
We bought one house for $35,000.
Oh, wow.
For a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Oh, that's amazing.
That does not exist anymore.
Right.
It was not beautiful on the inside. I mean, we had to make because it was not in a great neighborhood. The neighborhood in a short period of time turned dramatically, as so many are. That was our first one. And we had a property manager and
got it.
We had a lot of issues with that house, I guess. But I mean, it was fine.
It's $35,000.
It's $35,000, right. And then we found a couple more. He would be able to remember exactly the numbers, but we
like below 100 or like.
No, we found several below 100, and I think maybe around 110, 120, which really, like I said, doesn't exist anymore. I was anxious at the time about it. It seemed like a lot of risk to take on. Looking back, I wish we'd have bought even more because obviously the workload on that would have been unmanageable, honestly. So in hindsight, I shouldn't really wish we'd bought more, but.
No, but for the prices, right?
Right,
I see
exactly.
what you mean. And I guess where you are now with those too.
Yes. We have sold several of those at this point and purchased other properties.
Okay, that's good. So then that gave you power to buy even more in other areas.
Yes.
Got it. And then leading you to quit your job and then be able to like comfortably afford to quit your job and manage.
Then I had my second child who was very premature and I was on bed rest for a long time. And then he was in the NICU for 75 days.
It's a long time.
It was a very long time. And my company got sold while he was in the NICU. So we were getting packages and I called my boss from the hospital bed and I said, please don't save my job. Please don't save my job.
Like severance me out.
Yeah,
yes.
I gotta go. Like this, I have way too much going on right now. We were faced with we didn't know what our child care situation was going to be. We had a child that was going to come home.
Oh yes.
Well, but not super healthy. So the daycare situation wasn't going to be great for him. And so I was like, don't save me. I know you're going to feel like you should save me, but saving me would be like cutting me in the first string. I want to go. So that sort of worked out. I never had to make the actual decision to leave. The decision was really made for me. It was just a matter of time. And I guess that's what we've been doing, ever since.
Right. And and you weren't worried about it because, hey, I have this we have real estate that's supplementing the income anyway. Yeah. So that's awesome. And then the rest is history. So you've used those earlier ones to finance the fancier ones.
We took out HELOCs and did those sort of creative things with money that I didn't even know were possible in order to buy other houses. And it really all started with that initial $35,000 investment. And we were able to grow into what it is now, which is funny because on a month-to-month basis, we're not generating any cash or a lot of cash. But in terms of growing net worth and having equity in real estate, that is certainly where it's been. So we have more money in our net worth, I guess, than we would have if we were just throwing our money toward our bonus money toward the 529 each year. So that's been worth it.
Got it. Right. Because like you said, when your your oldest little one is ready for college, you can sell a house and boom.
Yes.
That's probably all 3 kids is college.
That's our plan. I have
one house.
In my mind, I've got one earmarked for each kid. We involve them in it, and there's one that's not too far from us, and they'll go over to that one and clean it. And we did showings together when it was on the market this past month. They know about it, and they know that that's their college fund also, that this is their family business so that they can go to college. And I mean, they're 8, 6, and 4, so they don't have a huge awareness of that yet. But I don't know. I think it's important.
So what kind of creative financing were you talking about that you use for each previous property to get the other property, the next property?
We took that $35,000. I know we took a home equity line of credit, and we used that bunch of cash to buy another house. And then we had two. And then we refinanced those together and got a blanket loan. So we had some cash from that and bought a third house. We took out another just sort of it's not a private loan, but it wasn't a mortgage. It was like just a cash loan because it was a low priced house. And the interest rate is obviously not what it was. But when it costs 2% to borrow money, love to borrow money. We make way more money borrowing money than we could by investing it in other and doing anything else. So that made sense. We haven't come up with our new plan right now, but right now I'm like, that plan was that plan don't work so much anymore.
Well, when I bought my first place, interest rates were at 7%, and it's still a great deal because it's, just like with your $35,000, it's allowed me to, buy other stuff too. So that is like the trend. It's like, just get in. But that's what we want our listeners to do, is to just get that first piece of investment property.
Just get in. We made a million mistakes along the way, and definitely a blood, sweat, and tears story. Blood, sweat, and screaming and cussing story. But I mean, looking back, we have no regrets for sure.
Yay. Well, thanks for joining us today, Grace. It's good for people to hear the good side and the bad side. And that way, this is how we learn. This is how we grow in our real estate careers and endeavors and journeys.
Yes, for sure. I would have benefited from a Stacking Deeds podcast 8 years ago to maybe get some tips rather than just figuring it out on my own.
Well, we appreciate you for joining us today. Oh, and then here we are. Ruth just kicks us out at random places when she's about to have a cigarette. So, Grace, where can people find you online?
I do nothing online, actually. So
No, that's good to know. That's good to know. Thanks again for joining us, Grace. That was a really, really great conversation. She is so down to earth.
Yeah, I love hearing her stories. And what I heard is what I think is very, very important is if you have property management, they're really going to be the driver of your success. So you have to have good property management. You have to have your property management aligned incentively, financially aligned incentively. I don't recommend using a property manager that charges a fee to manage repairs. That can get really expensive in Grace's case. They're basically making up repairs to add 10 to 15% on top of it. That's going to drain your cash flow instantly. Two, I usually don't have a property manager that makes money when I don't make money. So I like to align them where they get 10% of all income that I make. And that's negotiable. 10% is average. But that way, if it's empty, they're not making money because I'm not making money. And then they're incentivized to rent it as quickly as possible, but also at the highest price possible so that they make more money. And for a tenant that's going to stay a long time, because if they have a lot of transition, that's a lot more work for the property manager. So they're incentivized to screen them better. Just keep that in mind. If you're going to get a property manager, they can't make money when you're not making money. Don't have them upcharge you for repairs. You're setting yourself up for success that way. And again, I always come back to this. There's now software these days that will help make this much easier for you, help the communication, the screening of the tenant, the collecting of the rent, the automatic charging of the late fees, and it all goes to the owner rather than the property manager.
Right. I feel like there should have been a lot more negotiation with the property manager. So remember, you are in control. This is your property. This is your bread and butter. So make sure you are in control. You're doing the negotiations, and then everything works in your favor, or else it's the highway. But she's doing a great job managing her children and her property. So I really thank Grace again for being with us today. There'll be a recap of our conversation in the show notes. And is that the phone ringing again?
It sure is. It's also the last segment of the show. Let's answer it and see what question we have today.
Hi, my name is Kim, and I am very new to investing. I'm so new that I haven't purchased anything yet, but I've done a lot of research and I listened to your podcast, and I wanted to ask, what is your opinion of Roofstock.com, ROOF stock.com? I live in a very expensive market, so I can't afford to buy a rental property where I am, but I would like to buy something in a less expensive market that will cash flow better than what I could get here. And I wanted to know if that was an option for me. I just want someone's opinion who knows way more than I do. But as I've researched that website, it seems like something that's manageable for me, but I don't know all the ins and outs. So I just wanted to ask your opinion. I love your show and I appreciate the information. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. So thoughts on Roofstock. So first of all, thank you very much for your message, Kim. We really, really appreciate you calling in. I would say this is a two-part question for you, Alan. First of all, she thinks if your local area, what should you do when your local area is too expensive for investing? And then what do you think about Roofstock? I don't know anything about Roofstock.
Well, I'll say this. It's becoming more and more common to invest out of state. I'm a realtor in Atlanta, and I help clients who live in very expensive cities in New York and San Francisco, and the numbers just don't work in a lot of these big towns. And a previous guest on the show, Tom Brickman of The Frugal Gay, he teaches people how to invest long distance. He lives in Dallas, but he invests in Toledo, Ohio. And so this is becoming more of a thing to do long distance investing. So that is typically what you're going to have to do if your town is too expensive.
Oh, yeah. And sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I live in the DC area, which is crazy expensive, and my places are in Chicago.
Yeah, you're a long distance investor. So it's easier to get done with, you can do Zoom calls and phone calls and software. So that is not a weird thing anymore to do. Like the technology and the systems are there in place to help facilitate that. As for Roofstock, if you're not familiar with Roofstock, it's basically an eBay site of rental properties, right? It's a Zillow where it's only properties that have tenants in place. They typically have property management in place. It's very, very easy for you. I never used it. I reached out to a bunch of folks in the real estate investing world. They're familiar with it, but if you're a real estate investor, you want to have control and do it all yourself. Typically, a lot of money can be made with asymmetrical information. What I mean by that is I know of a house that's off market or not well advertised. I can get a better price than a beautiful Zillow-like website where every investor knows exactly the price. It can be bid up. It's just so visible and so easy for you. There's a bunch of middlemen and advertising that you're not going to make as much money, but that's always going to be the trade-off in real estate investing. The more headaches, the more work you're willing to do, the more money you'll make. The easier it gets, the less money you're going to make. It doesn't mean it's a bad investment. It's just convenience has a price. And how much convenience do you want in your real estate investing?
Oh, I love that answer. So it's like Alan always says, it's a spreadsheet decision. So you're putting yourself either in or out of the equation of how much work you like to do and how much profit you like to make.
So I guess, Kim, give it a shot. Maybe put some of your investment funds into that, but maybe not all of it, just to learn the language, get familiar with being a landlord and an investor. But I think the long-term plan for you should be eventually to pivot to doing this yourself without going through a third-party management system.
So then if she's looking for different metropolitan areas, would you recommend her maybe get familiar with Roofstock to see which metropolitan areas may fit her qualities better and then try to find like local meetup groups in that area?
Yeah, I think that's always great, talking to locals and talking to other investors. You want to be in the room with other people doing what you're doing. My sort of rule of thumb is if you're going to invest out of state, try to be within 2 hours of a major airport. Transportation is always a factor with real estate prices. It used to be how close you are to the train station. When I lived in New York, it was how close you are to the subway stop. Mm-hmm. Probably in Chicago, how close you are to the L. Yep. All those sort of things, right? But with work from home options, I think you're going to be connected through airports and you can work from home, but I want you at these conferences or these special meetings, and just sort of being within a 2-hour drive of an airport, I think is going to be sort of a requirement for many people when they're looking for homes or renting a house. So that's sort of my gut check, is try to be within 2 hours of a major airport. And I also like trying to be within 1 hour of a university, just because university seems to create cool mom and pop shops, has a good economy. Universities can go out of business and they're struggling right now. So that I wouldn't just buy in a college town because it's a college town, but if you can kind of get that combo of a college town close to an airport, that seems to be an evergreen city with growth, stabilization, things that an investor would want in any purchase.
Very good points. And if you have a question for Alan and I to answer, head over to stackingdeeds.net/voicemail. Leave us a message and we'll answer your question just like we did Kim's today. Well, what an awesome show today, Alan. I believe that is a wrap.
Yeah, I really loved hearing Grace's story, a person in the field who's just figuring it out, even from the bed of the hospital. She's figuring things out. So, it takes optimism. And I want to reiterate, she said, we're not making a ton of money off cash flow, but the appreciation of these properties that she bought for $35,000 that felt expensive at the time. And I can't believe we're doing this. And then 8 years later, we should have bought more. That feeling is every investor. So when you're buying today, it's going to feel expensive. I can't believe I'm doing this. And then 8 years, you're always going to be like, man, I should have bought more. That's just a recurring refrain from every real estate investor who buys for cash flow and gets those 30-year fixed mortgages. It's just a waiting game. It's a get rich eventually game. And you won't learn that lesson until you get started. So get to work early and it'll pay off sooner for you as well.
Exactly. It's in your best interest to get started. And even speaking of interest, I got started when interest rates were at 7.5%, and I would have bought even more properties had I known, back then what I know now, because, the properties have gone up in value and they've led me to other opportunities that I would never have come my way had I not just invested in that first property.
I'm with you as well, Crystal. Thanks for tuning in. Doug, what should we have learned today?
So, what should we have learned today? First, take some advice from Grace Swanson. Be prepared to take matters into your own hands if you can't find a property manager with financially aligned incentives. Second, not everyone celebrates celebrities coming to town. Towns and neighbors everywhere struggle with change. Results will vary. But the big lesson? Taking an L in Chicago does not mean you are a loser, but I sure do get called that a lot when I'm writing it. They must be worried about Doug the celebrity coming to town to buy up all the good real estate. Ruth, you ready to take me home shopping? Thanks to Supermom with a heart of gold, Grace Swanson, for joining us today. We'll also include links in our show notes at stackingdeeds.net. Thanks to our producer, Jasmine Radler, and audio editor, Steve Stewart. And as always, follow our hosts, Crystal Hammond and Alan Corey, online at Condo Crystal and at Real Estate Maxi. See you next week on Stacking Deeds.